Those of you who have been subscribed to HITC Sevens for any considerable degree of time know that I welcome a challenge and that I'm always open to ideas. Today's video comes courtesy of a few suggestions from subscribers Otto, Asleep, and Illy Daniel Russ, who all asked me to come up with a starting 11 made up only of players playing out of position. Some people responded to those suggestions with their own ideas, such as Kevin De Bruyne on the right wing and Dennis Praet out wide on the left. Now, this would be quite an easy 11 to make if I put attacking fullbacks or wingbacks on the flanks, maybe a ball-playing centre-back in holding midfield, and a prolific winger at centre-forward. However, I don't think that would be particularly entertaining for all you wonderful people, and it also wouldn't be very challenging for myself. So, this isn't just an 11 with every player slightly out of position, the player has to be really out of position. There'll be no fullbacks on the wings, no defence midfielders in attack midfield, and no attacking midfielders at centre forward. Essentially, I'm looking for players with at least some of the desired attributes to play in a certain position, but they can't have any familiarity with that position. Hopefully, this is all clear enough. Here is my best 11, with every player playing really out of position. Goalkeeper, Phil Jagielka. I'm sure some of you were expecting a Kyle Walker or Harry Kane, but I'm not messing around with this 11, I want it to be as strong as possible. There have been some talented outfield shotstoppers over the years, from John O'Shea and John Terry to the great Brazilian legend Pelé. All like to dabble with going in goal during training sessions, and all could be called upon should the worst happen and a goalkeeper or two be forced out of action. Perhaps the finest outfield player in goal right now though, and maybe of all time, is Phil Jagielka. The veteran Blade centre-back was hard to beat between the sticks during training sessions in his first stint with Sheffield United, impressing sufficiently enough to convince Neil Warnock he didn't need to name a backup goalkeeper on his bench. When called into action against Arsenal, Jagielka pulled off a couple of impressive saves to secure a Blades win, and he's my choice ahead of Wayne Rooney as our out-of-position number 1. Right back, Koke. I've said in the past that I think Koke is possibly the most well-rounded and complete footballer on earth at the moment, and he could play in any position from right back to up front. The two-footed Atletico Madrid midfielder obviously plays predominantly through the middle, occasionally wide on the left, and on very rare occasions, out wide on the right. An excellent reader of the game who rarely switches off, Koke is industrious and athletic, meaning he could get up and down the right flank for days. The Spaniard is also really good in the tackle and a dangerous crosser of a ball, so I don't think he would look at all out of place at right back. In fact, he'd probably be among the most comfortable players in this 11 in his new and unfamiliar position. Centre back, Marouane Fellaini. Another really versatile player, Marouane Fellaini has played as a central midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and even as a centre forward. One position I've never seen the former Everton star feature in is centre back, but I think he's a perfect fit in this 11. Whilst I personally will never forgive Fellaini for getting away with a deliberate elbow on Michael Turner more than a decade ago, he's a man who is often adored by his teammates due to his fantastic work rate and desire. Fellaini is obviously incredibly dominant in aerial situations and would add an aggression and forcefulness to our backline, but he's also a combative and talented winner of the ball who knows how to mark opponents diligently. Fellaini may sometimes look clumsy and cumbersome in midfield, but those deficiencies would be masked at centre-back, and he could probably add another 2 or 3 years onto his career. Centre-back, Sami Khedira. There's a good balance to our centre-back partnership, with Fellaini, the brave and aggressive one, who would rush to the ball kicking and heading everything in sight, meanwhile Sami Khedira could just sit in deep, in a covering role, sweeping up any loose balls, and bringing an air of calmness to our backline. I'm a little bit surprised that Sami Khedira still has another year left on his Juventus contract, given that he has had his injury problems in recent years, and the old lady probably now has stronger options in the middle of the park. Nevertheless, Khedira has had a magnificent career, now aged 33, having won a World Cup, a Champions League, and 6 league titles across 3 different nations. Managers love Khedira due to his work rate and mentality. Positionally, there are a few more astute than Khedira, who is also good in the air, a fine man marker, and a great shout as a centre-back in my humble opinion. Left back, Fred. A man who featured in my recent list of 7 footballers who have previously failed drugs tests, Manchester United midfielder Fred, has come back from being written off by a lot of people and now looks like a regular fixture at Old Trafford. Fred has played almost exclusively in central and holding midfield all his life, combining energy and good technique to be an effective box-to-box player who offers a little bit of everything. His stamina and agility would come in equally useful as a fullback, as would his willingness to commit players and whip a dangerous ball into the box. There's also the fact that Fred is a left footer, which is obviously pretty useful for a left back. Between him and Koke, I think we look strong in the fullback positions and across our entire defence. Defensive midfield. Roberto Firmino. I shouldn't think this one needs too much explaining, since everyone is well aware of the many talents of Roberto Firmino. Although he plays as a centre-forward for Liverpool, and does so with distinction, Firmino is renowned for his high work rate, his ability to win the ball back, and his creativity in the pass. All those ingredients make for a fantastic defensive midfielder who would bring real energy, dynamism, and thought to our midfield, as well as an occasional goal threat. A case could be made for Firmino being more suited to central than defensive midfield, playing in an energetic box-to-box role, but I said I wanted this team to feature players playing seriously out of position, and a centre-forward in holding midfield fits the bill. Central midfield. Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's 2 from 2 for Liverpool in our midfield so far, as fullback Trent Alexander-Arnold joins Roberto Firmino in the middle of the park. Now, this feels like a bit of a cheap move, since Alexander-Arnold has been talked about as a future central midfielder for a little while, but that doesn't change the fact that he plays in a totally different position now, and as such fits the bill. I actually don't think a position change would be a good idea for Alexander-Arnold, given how vital his deliveries from deep wide areas are to Liverpool. Nevertheless, he does have fantastic vision and a brilliant range of passing, so I've no doubt he'd be capable of playing centrally as a playmaker. My advice to Jurgen Klopp, and naturally one of the world's best managers is bound to listen to me, would be to keep Alexander-Arnold where he is, but for an out-of-position 11, he's an ideal central midfielder. Central midfield. Gerard Piqué. I think this team would probably look stronger with Roberto Firmino alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold in central midfield, and Gerard Piqué sitting deep, but moving Piqué from centre-back to holding midfield didn't seem like a radical enough change to me, so he has to wait until central midfield. There are a few modern centre-backs who'd look comfortable in a more advanced role, including fellow Spaniard Sergio Ramos, but none more so than Piqué. The Barcelona legend is a brilliant reader of the game and passer of a ball, in addition to being more than good enough in possession to play in central midfield. Also, if this were a real 11, Piqué would have the defensive nous to drop in whenever Firmino or one of the fullbacks wanted to push on. Right wing. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Remember I said there'd be no fullbacks or forwards on either of the flanks before you tell me I should have gone with someone like Dani Alves or Joao Cancelo here. In the absence of the easy options, I think we could do a whole lot worse than Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I've said in the past that I like Loftus-Cheek a lot, but at the age of 24, he needs to be getting regular game time next season or he risks wasting much of his undoubted potential. At 6'3", Loftus-Cheek isn't the daintiest of footballers or the most obvious candidate to shift onto the wing, but there are other tall wingers like Marko Arnautovic and Andrei Yarmolenko. Loftus-Cheek is a fantastic athlete, combining size, strength and pace, and he could almost be a little reminiscent of Hulk on the wing. Loftus-Cheek's pace, twin with his quick feet, ability to beat players and goal threat would make him an unusual but dangerous proposition on the wing, or at least, I reckon it would. Left wing. Bruno Guimaraes. Given the self-imposed restrictions I placed upon myself, the left wing was possibly the trickiest spot to fill in this 11. In the end, I think I got my man, and if any of you are thinking how on earth hasn't X, Y or Z featured, I may come to that in just a moment. Bruno Guimaraes is an energetic box-to-box midfield playmaker who only arrived in Europe with Lyon from Atletico Paranaense in January 2020. The €20 million 20-year-old Brazilian import has no experience playing in wide areas, meaning he's a valid inclusion here, but I think he could adapt to the role with some degree of competence. Guimaraes isn't rapid, but he's no slouch. He has intelligent movement, he's good on the ball, and he can produce a pass in the final third. He is of course a right footer, meaning he would have to cut inside, but I see no reason why he and Loftus-Cheek couldn't switch flanks mid-game to bamboozle defences, seen as though they're both already playing totally out of position. Centre forward. Jordi Alba. I suspect my choice at centre forward will be the most contentious one down in the comments, but I'll try to do it some justice. Now, I could have just selected someone who is half decent in the air and at finishing at centre forward, such as a Sergio Ramos or Marco Parolo, but that would be a bit of a cop-out, and I don't believe either would be as adept at leading the line as Jordi Alba. Alba is not particularly prolific. He has only scored 35 goals in total for both club and country, although it is worth bearing in mind that he is a left-back. Left-backs don't tend to score a handful of goals, especially when they don't have any set-piece duties. My main reason for picking Alba is his attacking movement, which is among the best of any non-forward player on earth. The timing and direction of Alba's runs are superb, and they'd ensure that he'd get plenty of chances across the course of a game or season. He's also quick, he has excellent technique, and whilst he isn't prolific, Alba tends to be fairly reliable when presented with an opportunity. Just go back and watch the Euro 2012 final if you don't believe me. All in all, I think in a really good team, Jordi Alba could easily score 15 plus goals in a season, and he's my left field shout to start at centre forward. I know some people requested a 23-man squad, but I don't really see how that would work, since obviously substitutes don't have assigned positions, so it'd probably just be easier to detail some candidates who just missed out, and explain certain notable omissions. First and foremost, I want to talk about Lionel Messi, who some people will think should have started in central midfield. Don't get me wrong, I'd take Messi in midfield over any of the three players I've picked there, but Messi basically plays in midfield these days anyway, so even in holding midfield, I didn't think I could justify it. To me, Messi wouldn't be that out of position in any forward or midfield position, and I wasn't going to shoehorn him in at fullback or something, so that's why he misses out. The other player you're probably wondering about, and another player you all know I wax lyrical about regularly, is Kevin De Bruyne. Again, for De Bruyne to be totally out of position, I think you're talking about putting him at centre-back, full-back, and maybe centre-forward. In midfield or out wide, I'd say he isn't truly out of position, and whilst he'd be great at centre-forward, I said no attack midfielders, so he would have been a dubious inclusion. I was tempted to put his teammate Ederson in centre midfield alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold, since we all know how good Ederson's range of passing and vision can be, plus it'd be funny. In truth, as good as Ederson's passing is, he'd look like a fish out of water in central midfield, and there's no way he'd be more comfortable there than almost any top-class actual outfield player. Brazilian exile Oscar, forgotten about by many in the Chinese Super League, almost featured in a couple of positions, but just missed out. Meanwhile, a whole raft of players almost made specific roles, but I just found what I felt were better options. Of course, let us know your views and suggestions as ever in the comments, but please bear in mind the self-imposed restrictions that I used before telling me I should have put Virgil van Dijk in defensive midfield, Marcelo on the left wing, or Thomas Muller at centre forward. Yes, they would have been better options with more lenient criteria, but I'm trying to do something a bit trickier, a bit cleverer, and a bit more interesting. There is a reason why HITC Sevens is nicknamed the Thinking Man and Woman's channel, as well as being the People's channel. As ever, thank you all for watching, you're all brilliant, especially if you like this video and subscribe to the mecca of occasional footballing wisdom, fun and foolishness that is HITC Sevens.